it's becoming very clear that biotechnology has a lot to say right now, and even more to say in the future, a better future and healthier. A future which has a lot to say and more about the world, about people, and more about the world we live in. And now, the last panel of the day is going to talk about microbiome. Please welcome the moderator, Daniel Ramon. He's CEO of ADM Biopolis, and the experts, Isabel de Cremou, CEO and managing partner of Tagedis, 7-year partners. Fermín Milagro, here with me, Director of Nutritionics and Biomarkers, Biotagut at University of Navarra, and Pedro González, CEO in Microbiome. Please, it's your time. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much. This is Daniel. Good afternoon. Today I have the pleasure of moderating this panel discussion on scientific advances in the study of the human microbiome and its industrial application. As Iruña indicates, we have three different colleagues here, and I would like to ask each of them an introduction about their respective organizations for no more than 2-3 minutes, and then move to a discussion on the microbiome and the possibilities of developing business based on knowledge on the microbiome. So please, Fermín, can you start with an introduction to your organization and your work on microbiome?
Of course. Thank you, Daniel. Well, I am the hero of the day, the only one that is here in the stage. I am a researcher at the University of Navarra in the Center of Nutrition Research. We are working in the university, interacting with other groups of the university, and always with a translational point of view, trying to collaborate with the different partners in the university, in the industry, in other means. We are working especially in personalized nutrition, because we know that the needs for every person is different, depending on the genetics, on the microbiota, on the many factors that are personalizing these needs. And we try to put in the same equation these different factors, okay? Genetics, microbiota, the use of other omics technologies to design, use different biomarkers at the end to design this tailor-made advice, nutritional advice, and to know the real needs of each person. And one of these points, of course, is microbiota, that we will talk later.
Excellent, Fermín. Pedro, your time.
Thank you for the opportunity and invitation. Thanks a lot, Daniel. So yeah, I'm Pedro González. I'm the CEO of a Microbiome company, which is a startup located in the Biomedical Research Park of Barcelona, more accurately in the Center for Genomic Regulation. And I am a microbial ecologist. I did my PhD years ago in Alicante, my postdoc here in Barcelona, and 4 years ago we had the opportunity of incorporate this startup. The idea was incorporate micromics, having into account that the mission of the company is close the gap in between the basic knowledge and the research and the industry. Following this mission, we were growing during the last 4 years. By means of a mixed model, we combined ideally the services with the R&D in the company, just taking into account this idea in our mind day by day, closing the gap and trying to put together the final customers and also the society in our R&D work, and by another hand, the basic research. So yeah, nowadays we are working with different niches in partnerships and collaborators, in industry partners, clinicians, universities, so also in the field of the animal health and agriculture. So yeah, we are a really proactive startup, really young, and yeah, the idea is to promote and help the development of products in the field of the microbiome.
Thank you, Pedro. And Isabel,
Thank you.
your time. Can you explain us your venture capital firm?
Yes, thank you. Happy to be with you all. So I'm, contrary to what was said, I'm only the CEO and managing partner of Venture Partners, not Targetis. Venture Partner is a venture capital company, and we finance in equity lots of different startups and medium companies with innovation in life sciences. Microbiome is currently the core focus of our strategy of investment, with a fund called Health for Life Capital that is specifically active in the microbiome field, both in the drug and treatment and prevention, as well as in food, nutritional product, and digital nutrition, personalized nutrition, precision medicine sectors. We have many corporates as well as financial institutions as investors in our fund, and we also have other type of funds that are doing more classic biotech investment in addition to this microbiome focus. Our geographical scope is that we invest in Europe, as well as in Israel, North America, and Asia. And we invest from €500,000 to 20 million euros per company.
Thank you, Isabel. So I have a first question for Fermin. Fermin, the last 10 years of research on the human microbiome and microbiome modulators has been very, very intense. Could you give us your view on this intense period of research and how you think it has changed the view we have on the border, in this border between health and diseases?
Yes, well, in this moment we need basic research in order to define what is dysbiosis and which kind of microbiota composition and microbiota function is altered and is linked with human disease. We have some knowledge, but we must more research, because the complexity of the gut microbiota is extremely huge. There are hundreds of different species interacting between them, interacting with our cells that depend on what we are eating and what we are secreting to the intestine. In this moment, we have only a small view of all this complexity. And I think there are three main points in the study of microbiota and three main objectives in the next years. First one is to identify this pattern of dysbiosis, or these patterns, because probably there will be different patterns. These patterns associated with different diseases and associated with different lifestyles and diets, okay? So with this, we can create and generate kits or DNA kits for detect this dysbiosis. The second one is to learn how to modulate this microbiota. Which kind of products, foods, dietary patterns, I don't know, the Mediterranean pattern, the different prebiotics, different probiotics, how all these factors can modulate the microbiota in the way we want to improve health. And the third one, I think, is the identification of new potential probiotics. When we have this view of the microbiota function, we can focus on different bacteria that in this moment probably we don't know even that they exist, and to study them more in detail, and to have new probiotics or new combinations of probiotics that will help to boost human health.
Thank you, Fermin. Pedro, after this excellent summary of Fermin, how a biotech company like your company, Microbiome, assimilate this scientific advance to generate growth?
Okay, this is a good question. Since the knowledge main in the microbiome started with the Human Microbiome Project in 2008, a lot of information has been accumulated. I really agree with Fermin, in line with the mention by Fermin, the information, it's been accumulated step by step. I think that the transition in between the academia and the companies started a few years ago. The gap in the field of microbiome was 5-7 years, the transition in between the academia and the company, which is the usual timing. I think that for the newest discoveries, this gap is going closing step by step because of the interaction between the academia and the companies. So, in my opinion, companies like Microbiome assimilated really well this knowledge man. And yeah, under my opinion, there is a key point, okay, because what the companies need to identify is a market opportunity, and the market opportunity is defined by 3 pillars that define a triangle. By one hand, we have to identify the novel technological opportunities. And on the other hand, we have to identify the need in the society. And in the third layer, or in the third peak of this triangle, we have to modulate the information from the academia to the real customer. So this is a huge challenge, because we have the gap mentioned in between the academia and also the companies, but also in between the companies and the final customers. I mean, industrial, clinicians, or patients by itself. So coming back to the example of the clinicians, I think that mixed models like the ones that we are promoting in Micromix we need these kind of mixed models. In our case, what we does by means of proof of concepts and also by means of beta testing with final customers, with researchers. By our own, we are also researchers, and we have this mixed model. It's closing both gaps. Maybe we will talk about the novelties in later questions, but yeah. My opinion is that this gap is coming, it's becoming close and close, time by time, and the new opportunities in the field of the clinician are coming by the way mentioned by Fermin. But it's key, improve the relation or the connections between the academia and the industry, but by the time taking into account the society, because we are serving the society. And if we want to promote our country, and bring this knowledge man, this basic information to the society, we have to do the effort of closing both gaps.
Thank you, Pedro. Isabel, after these two interventions from the public and the private sector, can you describe us the current landscape of the European Union startups that use the microbiome or microbiome modulators as the core strategy?
If we want to look at Europe, zoom at Europe, and at the current status, looking at what has changed since it's all started about 10 years ago, as the previous speakers described, then it's interesting to see that
Oh, we lost Isabel. Okay, we have a technical problem with Isabel. We can follow with the other question for Fermin, for example. Fermin, in the previous question I asked you about past and present. I would like to speak now about future. From the public science point of view, what relevant new discoveries do you sense in the next 5 years in the area of microbiome research?
Well, first of all, I think we must disentangle this. We must analyze the interactions between the different microorganisms, because I'm sure that at the end, the effects of one only microorganism it will not be extremely big or strong. We must analyze these interactions between microorganisms and the interactions of the microorganisms with the human host. Also, I think one field that is in the future very near is the field of postbiotics. In two senses, the postbiotics as inactivated bacteria, for example, or dead bacteria that can act on our metabolism, and a second sense of the word postbiotic, that is the metabolites that are produced by the microorganisms and can be absorbed by our body and act on the different organs or tissues in our body. For example, in the liver, for example, in the brain, or everywhere in the. And then I see that there are many possibilities in the future. For example, for the food industry, there is the possibility to create new, more personalized foods focused on changing this microbiome in a more personalized way, okay? And food industry can apply different techniques to study or to how to apply new prebiotics, new fibers, new combinations of this kind of products, combinations of probiotics and the different products that we are talking about. And also in this identification of new probiotics, we can study how to, in the sense of how to modify the genetics of some of these bacteria. For example, some bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics and for this reason can't be used in human health. If we are able to annul or to discard this gene of resistance to antibiotics, we can use in the future these probiotics in human health. So I think biotechnology can be applied in order to this kind of new tools in this microbiota field.
Thank you, Fermin. I don't know if Isabel is not connected.
Yes.
Isabel?
Yeah, I've been disconnected.
Sorry.
So what I was
Okay,
about to say
the connection was broken when you were explaining us the EU startup
yes.
environment.
Sorry about these logistic problems that I don't understand. I was about to say that when it all started 10 years ago, it started mainly with probiotic companies such as the BioGaia and the Probi of this world. But then the new generation that we see nowadays in the micromodulator segment are exploring many different modalities in addition to the classic probiotic. They're exploring a lot of pharma regulatory pathways such as the FMT and the full ecosystem grafting, and those products are currently in phase 3. There is one in IBT in Sweden for neck. There is one. There are two in France, MAT and Davolterra, in autoimmune and immuno-oncology diseases, already in phase 3, without counting the Ferring acquisition of Rebiotic, which is almost finished with the phase 3 and is about to file for market authorization. Then, in addition to FMT, there are, of course, many single strains or multi-strain LBPs choosing the pharma grade rather than the classic bifido and lactobacillus probiotic food grade. There are many companies also in peptides and small molecules in Europe currently, some of them in phase 2, such as Antaromin Crohn, which has 1 phase 2 trial in Crohn diseases, as well as 3 phase 1-2 trial in immuno-oncology. There is Everimmune in France again in phase 1-2 in combination with checkpoint inhibitor. And another interesting assessment, if I can say so, that is currently seen and was not the case 10 years ago, is that there are more and more enabling technology companies, such as more adequate animal models, either accessible from academia or service companies, or developed proprietary within the startups that are using it for their own purposes. There are also larger banks of samples in European startup companies. Some startup already gathered like 8,000 or 10,000 samples from different patients for observing the cohort and making their own assays. There are also more and more competent European-based service providers in the IP, regulatory, and CROs segments, which is, of course, absolutely critical for the European startups to develop. Yeah. And in the digital part, there are dozens of European-based companies working in the direct-to-consumer microbiome testing field, but very rare those of them that goes down to personalized nutrition, personalized dietary supplement, or selling physical product in addition to the advice that they are giving to their customer.
Yeah, you are right. Thank you, Isabel. Pedro, how do you think that these future results that Fermin and also Isabel explaining us the startups in Europe have described can influence the supply of products and services around the microbiome?
Yeah, I think that for sure the products created by companies like Micromics will absorb, will improve, will integrate these novel discoveries. So, yeah, I like to take into account in this answer some questions or topics mentioned in the 2 previous replies by Fermin, because he was talking about setting standard databases, and also he was talking about the personalized medicine, and we can talk about the personalized treatment of or translated this idea to many different microbial environments like the soil or the animal health and other, niches of the technological niches. But yeah, my opinion is that for setting this personalized medicine, we have to improve, do future improvements. We are living in the era of the information, and we need to standardize the databases. He was talking about the personalized medicine and, registry all the information about the patient. We need to standardize how to take this information and how to manage everything together. In other words, we are talking about the big data, machine learning, which are the terms that we are listening every day. But to be honest, are terms that must be developed in the next years, just to go or to improve or to push the idea of the personalized medicine. Under my opinion, it is really important to set the normal conditions for a control conditions in a patient, the health condition, and describe it for many different microbiomes of our body. The gut microbiome, the lung microbiome, etc. It's a must in the next year, and for this purpose, we have to set and standardize the conditions. For sure, I think that the improvement in NGS technologies must come together also. To be honest, the last years we were stopped at some points because of the crisis, and some emergent technologies like nanopore or pipe bio are pushing a lot. I think that the improvements of these technologies will open these opportunities and challenges, and also, together, this will allow to us discover new biomarkers that, for instance, can be included in panels and on other products. And yeah, this is the way to go to the personalized medicine. I think that in the field of the clinician is the future, and in another fields like the agriculture or the animal health, basically we are talking about the same. The products must include these concepts, and currently, in fact, we are working in that sense. We are dedicating a lot of effort in our R&D department in the way mentioned by Fermin. Then I have to say that I am totally in line with mentioned by him previously.
Thank you, Pedro. Isabel, it's clear that the microbiome is a new field of research that is subject to cycles of interest, disinterest. What do you think will be the medium to long-term future of microbiome-based startups in Europe with respect to these cycles of interest, disinterest?
I think currently it's an excellent timing for asking ourselves indeed, what are the cycles about new disruptive class of products? What happens currently and for the last decade and for the next decade in the microbiome consists of cycle and up and downs, similarly to what happened in the past every time in all big disruptive new class of products, such as when the biologics appeared, the antisense, this gene therapy or cell therapy. For all of those disruptive new class of products, there has been a long period where the pioneering startup really had to educate their audience and the venture capital because it was totally unknown, and the first part of a fundraising meeting consisted for almost three-quarters of it of explaining what the microbiome was before you can even explain what your product were or what your company was doing. And that was until 2015. Then there were the first clinical trial data, the first IPOs, the first transactions, and there was a big hope and a big hype. And it was almost common to think or to hear that microbiome would solve everything, which was of course not true. And one that is old enough to have experienced all those previous waves know that when it's at this point of hype and hopes, you know that there's going to be a down before it's permanently high. The down happens last July when Cirrus actually failed its clinical trial, and on July 22nd, almost all listed microbiome companies had their market cap divided by 2 or even worse. It was progressive back on track in August and September, but it is currently in a stage where there is a tunnel of skepticism whether new clinical trial will provide good data and we go back in a confident state of mind towards what microbiome can bring to the medicine. I'm super confident that this time is imminent. The different late stage clinical trial that I spoke a minute ago about phase 2 and the phase 3 are about to deliver new clinical results, and as soon as there are positive clinical results from those, then the analysts and the venture community and everybody will go back on the table and will think, oh, why haven't started earlier? That is always the case. It's unavoidable with the different cycles of disruptive innovation. And once this cycle is done, then it remains permanently high with large transactions of acquisition, license deals, IPOs and venture capital being massively invested in the sector. So we're currently in the tunnel phase.
Okay. Thank you, Isabel. Fermin and Pedro, I have now a question for both of you. It's a local question. I would like to know your opinion about how to favor the transfer of microbiome knowledge generated in the Spanish public sector to Spanish private companies. Fermin, can you start?
Okay. Well, I think in this moment is a little bit soon for this. I think in the near future there must be more interactions between the public and the private sectors in order to search, in order to develop new tools, and at the end, in order to put these kind of tools in the market and to be available for the whole population. I think this moment is quite soon, but in a near future, I think it could be a very good a mean to improve the health of the people. And the government and the public institutions must be aware of this advantage of the microbiota and the probiotics field. But the private sector must be also investing in more research, also demonstrating the effects of the different probiotics, the different interventions, the different kind of foods that could be useful to modulate the microbiota and to improve health. And in this moment, we will be able to do this kind of interaction between the needs of the industry and the needs of the human population through the public sector, also the public health sector. I think we must work in this direction. We must engage the clinicians in this fight also. I am talking a lot with clinicians in the last months. They are all in all the aspects of health. They are all very interested in microbiota. They think that many things that they are not able to explain now in the different diseases could be at least partially explained by microbiota. So I think public in this moment knows what microbiota is. Clinicians are aware of the importance of the microbiota and the probiotics. And I think it's only a matter of time that all these factors will put together and to create the milieu to perform this kind of interactions at the end.
Thank you, Fermin. Pedro, your time.
Yeah. I like to assume in line with the ideas mentioned by Fermin. So under my opinion, there are some gaps that must be closed. In general, some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you are affecting the field of the microbiome, but in general, and other fields of the science and the industry. So basically, my perception in general is that in our country we have still a huge gap in between the basic research and the industry. Since I started in the science, I saw that, or I perceived that emerging ideas or figures contributed to close this gap. For instance, the emergence of tech transfer departments in many scientific parks and also universities, for sure, contributed to that. I think that there is a perception, a social perception, and a real gap between both sides, and both sides are afraid because the companies are afraid of invest a lot because they are not sure about if everything will go ahead, if they are going to invest a lot. On the other hand, the researchers, because I am a researcher and I was a pure researcher years ago, needs to improve the education in the field of the the investing, how to create companies, and how to translate the basic research to commercial opportunities. This is basic, and how contribute to close this gap in the field of the microbiome or in another fields. I think that events like Biospain or others like national congresses in which you can see together companies and also researchers, it is a good opportunity of sharing ideas and closing these gaps. Putting together in scientific parks and also in universities, companies and startups like our, for sure, must be a model. This is a model that we can find really frequently in other countries. And this is a model that is increasing in Spain, and I think that is a way for closing this gap. The other gap is the gap with the Curiosity. I was talking about that previously, but to be honest, by means of some figures like industrial postdoctorates or predocs, also tech transfer departments, and the events like Biospain and others that I mentioned previously, we have opportunities to create this motivation and closing this gap. We have to change also the classic model of the researcher, because there is a lot of opportunities, and we have to open our mind to these several alternatives and to put out these constrained models of companies and also research groups. For instance, our company combines both sides. We have this mixed model that, yeah, it's completely compatible, sustainable. We combine the basic research with the service, and it is possible translate the product from one side to the other faster. So I think that the important part is that in the end, doing that, putting together both sides, we will benefit the society, and this is the goal of both, of companies and also the researchers. Today, I'm in both sides, yeah, and I'm happy to contribute in that sense. So this is my point of view of this topic in general, and also more accurately in the field of the microbiome.
Pedro, at the end, you are right. Only risk pastors say that a lot of years ago. There is no basic and applied science. There is good and bad science. From bad science, you don't have nothing. From good science, at the end, you can have products. And that's the key point. And I think that in our country, we have an excellent amount of groups working in public and in private companies doing very good science in microbiome. Isabel, now I would like to move from local to international. I would like to know your opinion about what are the differences between the microbiome startups in Europe that you described very well at the beginning of this roundtable, and the situation in other geographical areas, for example, US or, for example, Asia, China. What do you think?
There are indeed significant differences in what type of modalities are developed in the different world regions. And if we look at it as a snapshot, it's true. And if we look at it as a movie, so as a progressive story, then it's even more true. So what I'm saying is that in the US, the key opinion leaders and the startups are mainly focusing on living microorganism, following pharma grade, so LBPs, as the FDA described those, living bioproducts, as well as synthetic biology. So there are many companies and KOL looking at how to transform the different strains so that they can actively produce the desired ingredient or API or metabolites or you name it in situ. And it's probably linked to the different acceptance of GMO products around the world. So in the US, mainly bugs as drugs, and a lot of startups that are platform using mainly bioinformatics and big data and IA without any product, not even a lead product, when they start getting the Series A financing. In Europe, the different startups that we're seeing are developing various modalities, as I described in the beginning, and I forgot to mention the phages company. Phages company seems to be mainly European-based, with the Ferricides, Eligo, Phagomate all across Europe. There are much more phages company in Europe than there is in the US. So a lot of different modalities, and more attention given to the ecosystem, so to the way the different bugs are needing needing each others to actually engraft and to actually grow, whereas in the US, single bugs as star are more looked at and developed. In Asia, the idea of cocktail of LBP, so consortia or rationally designed consortia of living organism, is the most fashionable, both in Japan as well as in Korea, where you have many startups and companies developing microbiome currently. In China, you have a few microbiome startups that are now developing and raising lots of funds. Most of them are in immuno-oncology in combination with checkpoint inhibitors currently.
Very, very interesting. Thank you very much, Isabel. We have 1 minute more. Anything to add from any of you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, if I can add one comment on what Fermin and Pedro just said about the local Spanish situation, even if I'm not living in Spain myself, but I can only encourage the Spanish government to actually really pay attention to the race, to the worldwide race that there is currently in the microbiome sector, the exponential number of patents that are filed every year. So last year there were more than 2,000 patents, and the patents start now to be granted. And the exponentially growing number of clinical trials that are currently started and ongoing worldwide. Last year there were more than 600 new clinical trials actually launched, even in the COVID period. So it's a race, it's a worldwide race. And once the different companies and academic centers would have patented and locked the different pieces of the puzzle, then it's going to be too late. So I can only encourage the Spanish government to actually be part of the race now, sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you very much. And many thanks to all of the three of you. I think that we are just on time, 6 o'clock. From my side, nothing more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, Daniel, Pedro, and Fermin, to bring us the last panel to track 2 at Biospain. Thanks also to the organization, ASEBIO, Government of Navarra, and Sodena. And of course, thanks to you, those who have been here with us at Baluarte, and those who have followed us via live streaming. Tomorrow, there's more. I will be here waiting for you at 9 a.m. To discover, with great speakers, of course, how science, technology, and innovation can generate business and opportunities. So see you tomorrow. Goodbye.